Or I will say, let us continue with the transmission, with the remainder of whatever follow-up questions may exist on the information we have already discussed.
Hello, Bashar.
And a good day.
Yesterday you mentioned there's roughly 200 million oversouls for every 6.
It
roughly.
Fluctuates.
Mm-hmm. And so that works out to roughly 30 souls per oversoul.
Yes.
And does
that's
that
a typical
mean,
average.
And are those roughly 30 gravitating to each other like the little...
Not necessarily. Depends upon the theme they are exploring, what it is in life they need to experience. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they will act like the best of friends, sometimes they will be bitter enemies in your particular reality. Depends on what they have to reflect to one another or whether they should even interact at all.
And is there, so there is some kind of a recognition, but it could be...
It may not be conscious.
Conscious,
but it will be vibrational in terms of themes that are necessary to reflect to one another to help each other play out what it is you have decided to play out. It may never reach a conscious level. And sometimes it may actually be for the benefit of exploring the theme that it does not reach a conscious level.
And do you find in events like this that there's kind of a Darwinian a screening process happening so that like-minded, connected souls are often brought together? In other words, is there are there people here who are sitting in the same room with their one of their 29 other people at this moment?
A few.
Could you share that with us? Oh, okay. Okay, well then that's it.
Thank you.
Hello, Bashar.
And a good day.
Good day, thank you. I'm caught in a little bit of a paradox and a confusion.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you. And I know you have the information that will bring clarity.
Maybe,
allow me.
maybe not. We never make that assumption, by the way.
Okay.
We get what we get when we get it.
This is true.
If we don't get it, we don't need it.
I accept that.
Thank you. And your paradox?
Well, it's between spiritual purity and activity in the world, and it relates...
Between spiritual purity and activity in the world.
Success in the world, probably.
And success in the world.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Yes. And also the idea of enlightenment. And I'm wondering if the idea of enlightenment is connection on a multidimensional level to the Oversoul, awareness of that.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what it is, but that's certainly one way of expressing it.
I've been expressing it as the idea of dissolving, reliquefying the personality matrix.
All right. That's another way of looking at it. These are all descriptions.
Descriptions.
Yes. Enlightenment is a state of being. A state of being, obviously, of heightened awareness. Now, what that means, and in terms of what methodology you use to represent that particular awareness, that really is up to you and almost doesn't matter.
On our planet, we've had, I think in the history, to get those heightened levels of awareness, we had to retreat and disassociate from activity in the world.
Some people find that that works for them. Others find just the opposite. They had to dive in more fully in order to actually find their spirituality.
So,
and everything in between.
So there is no particular path. It's all
about... If there was only one way, there would only be one person. Look around. Each person is a path. You're not on a path, you are a path. And if you exist, and if all the other people also exist, then that shows you that all those paths are valid, or they wouldn't exist. Because creation in that sense does not create things which are pointless in creation.
Is enlightenment the eventual evolution for each of us? If we follow the path of our excitement? Well, what do you mean by eventual? It may not happen in this lifetime for many people on Earth. Right. No, with that understanding, is at some point in evolution, over the period of reincarnation or a period of lifetimes, is that
I understand what you are saying. And the answer in some senses is yes, but only because everything already exists, and therefore on one level you're already enlightened. If you want to look at it as a linear time frame perspective and say that at some point in your evolution will you all reach enlightenment, then yes, because you all already exist there now.
So by following the path of my highest excitement and by
Yes.
committing, by aligning with my soul blueprint,
Yes.
thank you,
You're welcome.
then whatever level of evolution I am going to experience in this incarnation will happen.
Yes.
And there's no reason to think about it other than that.
Correct. You will make all of the appointments you intended to make in this life. All of you. You will not miss any of them with one exception. You will only miss your appointment if you are afraid you will miss your appointment. So if you stop worrying about missing your appointments, you will make them all. Because you will allow your life to play out in a natural, synchronistic manner, and everything that you really needed to get done in this life will get done. What doesn't get done didn't need to be done. Remember, you are an eternal and infinite spirit. What's your hurry?
No winning, just enjoying this
Yes.
moment now.
Just being, just living, just doing what excites you. Just expressing who you are as fully as you possibly can. That's all you really need to do. To live a full life and live out any so-called mission, purpose, appointment, or what have you that you intended to experience in this life. That's all you have to do. Do the best you can. Follow your excitement. Be yourself. That's all. It's really that simple. It really, really, really is.
Okay.
Unless, of course, you want to make it more complicated. That's up to you.
No, thank you.
All right.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to meet on the dream plane.
All right. Now, understand, we meet many of you on the dream plane all the time, and a lot of you simply don't remember.
Yes.
But you can be more open to it, more open to remembering it. Just ask for assistance, and remember that sometimes the ability to remember the encounters you are having in other dimensions and other realities also is intimately connected to your ability to be yourself on Earth as well. The more open you are on Earth, in some ways, the more capable you are of remembering your encounters in other realms. You follow me?
The more
The
open,
more you are yourself on Earth, the more capable you are of remembering encounters in other realms off the Earth as well.
the more fully present
Yes,
in this
yes,
moment.
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Does that help?
Bashar, I am grateful. Thank you.
So are we. Thank you.
Hi, Bashar.
And you good day.
And thank you for this interaction.
And you as well.
Yesterday, when we were talking about grays and parahumans, and you mentioned
Parallel humans.
parallel humans,
Yes.
and you mentioned gray factions,
Yes.
which you've mentioned over the years.
Yes.
And I always thought about it in a very 3D linear way.
Oh, all right. No
And then-
surprise there.
Yeah, really. Exactly. Why after all these years? But then this morning my brain kind of exploded.
Oh,
Yeah, and I thought, wait a minute, everything's multidimensional. There's
Yes.
infinite amounts of everything, including planet Earth.
Yes.
So I'm sure very, very many planet Earths had the experience that led to very, very many planets with grays.
yes.
And so these factions, perhaps, rather than being this linear projection I had, are from different time streams from different probable
Well,
Earths.
the answer is actually both.
Uh-huh.
There are different factions because there are different parallel time streams, and there are actually different factions in most of the time stream.
Right, yeah. So that led me to speculation.
Oh, all
And
right.
I know...
Is that near some other town that we would know of?
Yeah, it is.
Is that like Speculation, Nevada?
No, it's Speculation, California.
Oh, all right.
So I'm wondering at this point, I know that you've been in touch with other probable Earths that are in the same phase that we're in.
Some.
And that some of them, I guess I would guess more than one, are going to pull off the transformation, and some of them probably aren't.
And some of them already have not, and some of them already have.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I thought. So since some of them probably already have,
Yes.
and some of them actually already have,
Yes.
where are we at this point?
What, relative to all of them?
Well, relative to what your interest is in them.
Relative to my interest in them.
Yes, like you're tracking us, you're watching us, and,
Yes.
and what we do has directly to do with your existence in the future. So
Yes.
do we pull it off is my question, and can you
Do
tell
you
that
think
yet?
I would be speaking with you if you didn't?
Well, you've been speaking to us for a long time, and it was up for grabs for a while, was my understanding.
Not from our perspective.
Okay, so it's always been in the bag for us?
As far as our reality is concerned,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
But you have to understand that the Earth that we were talking to begin with is not the Earth we're talking to now.
Right, and I was thinking about that too.
Oh, so you are making a linear connection.
Well,
In that sense, no. It was up for grabs in terms of the Earth we began speaking with.
Right.
But in terms of the Earth we are speaking to now, it has always been in the bag.
Okay, but this Earth changes all the time,
Yes.
and I mean...
Nevertheless, there's a high degree of momentum toward the bag.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And then, you know, I was thinking with the, I was using like the Oversoul situation as an analogy, and I was thinking of fourth density, fifth density, etc.
Yes.
And it seems to me that that third density would have more finite beings in it because it's more dispersed.
Would have
it's not
more
as dense.
finite expressions.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, is your civilization close to where you function as less individuals and more, I mean, do you end up being...
We are capable of functioning as both simultaneously. Individuals and a collective.
Okay, and then as we've spoken to you sometimes when you've been non-physical, and
Yes.
from the non-physical perspective, you
Yes.
function as a collective, right?
And an individual, because there is the capability in certain non-physical levels of still expressing yourself as an individual, even though you may also be an aspect of a collective.
Right, so that's kind of like a parallel to Oversoul, right?
Well, mechanically speaking, it may function in a similar fashion, yes.
Okay. All right.
Does that help?
Yeah, thank you very
All right.
much.
Thank you.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Good day to you. I work with an energy that identifies itself as Emanuel.
All
and
right.
my question is that on several radio shows, listeners would call in and say that they had profound healings and they were familiar with this energy.
Yes.
And they would ask me if this was the same Emanuel that another person has written about, a book called Emanuel. And,
Yes.
And I don't know enough about oversouls versus energies that I might be tapping into. Could you give me any could you clarify
You are
this for me?
working with another aspect of the same energy. It isn't therefore exactly the same because it's expressed differently through you and is its own autonomous expression. But it is connected back to the same basic idea that the other ones issue from as well. You might want to refer to it as an oversoul level or something similar as a collective in that sense, expressing different aspects autonomously in different ways through different people at different places and different times.
Thank you.
Does that help?
That does help.
All right.
So when I was a little girl and Emanuel told me that he was a oversoul of Jesus.
Yes.
And I was raised Jewish and didn't really have that much of a background of Christianity.
Well, that's all right. Jesus was raised Jewish as well.
Absolutely. It was in 1993. I went to Midnight Mass and they were singing a song in church called Emanuel.
Yes.
And I asked a friend of mine why they were using the word Emmanuel, and she said, well, that's another name for Jesus.
Yes.
So my question to you is would this be in alignment with Christ energy?
Peripherally, yes. It is not expressed exactly that way, but it is, in that sense, vibrationally in alignment with the oversoul aspect that you also recognize as Christ consciousness or Buddha nature in that sense, Krishna spirit. It operates on a similar frequency, but it expresses itself slightly differently.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help you?
Yes, it does. So the people that respond to my work, let's say I get 2,000 emails after one radio show.
Yes.
The people that respond to my work, are they part of the same soul family that feels so comfortable?
No, not necessarily. They don't have to be part of the same soul family to be needing to use that particular frequency to accomplish what they need to accomplish in this particular life. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
In other words, an artist, even though they may buy paint from a particular paint store, doesn't need to be a family member of the people that own the paint store just to use their paint.
Right,
But their paint may be exactly what the artist needs to make that painting. So they will be attracted to use that paint, even though they may not necessarily be connected to that family that produced the paint any more than simply buying paint from the store that buys paint from the family. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course.
So it doesn't have to be a family soul connection distinctly in that sense in order for someone to be attracted to a vibration.
Okay.
This is the same idea also with the concept of relationships, where people talk about such things as twin flames and the idea of my soul mate. Anyone that you are in a strong relationship with that is reflecting to you what you need to know about yourself and what you're reflecting to them so they can know about themselves, in that sense, at that moment, that person is your soulmate. Even if in the next moment you never see each other again. Because the idea is simply about resonance and what you are attracted to for whatever purpose you are attracted to it. And in that moment of attraction and in that moment of reflection, they are exactly who you need to be interacting with, or you would not have been attracted to them for whatever reason. It may not be the reason your mind thinks, because your mind doesn't always allow itself to operate on the capacity or the level where it recognizes that sometimes things can lure you in certain directions, not because a certain thing needs to come to fruition, but only because you need to move in that direction as part of your path. That's why it is important to not hold too strongly onto the concept of goal orientation. Because the thing that's going on in any interaction is the thing that needs to be focused on, not where you think it will lead, because you often do not know. And often even cannot guess. Does that make sense?
Very much so.
Does it help round out the concept a little bit?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
So, thank you. My question, this is I think an important question for me personally.
Yes.
When I am doing this channeling,
Yes.
there are times when the energy is so strong.
Yes.
And I wonder, I can only assume that it's all perfect and whatever comes through is exactly perfect.
Exactly. Even if what comes through is, I don't know, then that's perfect. It is always perfect for whatever the interaction is. It is always the perfect thing that it is. Not perfect in the sense of being compared to some ideal. It is perfect for whatever it is that's going on, because it's a perfect version of that thing, and that has value equal to anything else that could have happened.
Right.
Now, it may change, it may grow, it may operate differently from time to time, but whatever it is at that moment, whatever it is delivered, as long as you believe you are doing the best you can to allow it to come through, to be of service, then whatever it is for that moment is exactly what it needed to be for you and everyone else involved, whether you know it or not. Does that make sense?
Very much so.
Does that help?
Very much so.
Why, thank you.
So this was a major turning point in my healing career. Back in 1993, I had a close friend who tripped over her cat, hit her head, and she lost her memory, but at the same time she also broke her wrist. She was in a lot of pain. So a couple weeks later, she wasn't healing very well. She called me with terrible migraine headaches, and I went to her place, and as Emanuel says, we're going into frequencies in harmony with who we are as spiritual beings.
Yes.
So we can be, do, and have in life all that makes our heart sing.
Yes.
And her frequency shifted, and there was a very strong energy in the room. And she identified herself as an alien by the name of Julie. And she said that the reason why my friend Anne had hit her head so badly and actually had a moment of unconsciousness is that she had a realization about a ship, and they didn't want her, this is what I was told, they didn't want her to remember. And so the intention wasn't for her to break her wrist, it was just for her to forget. Well, I got very upset.
Why?
And I told Julie that they had to reverse this immediately.
Why?
I got upset that she broke her wrist.
Why?
Because she was in a lot of pain.
Yes.
And I just asked Julie, I said, would you please reverse this? And she said yes.
All right.
She said, in exchange for me teaching them more about compassion. I said, fine. So this is what Julie said. She said she wanted me to just hold the frequency and leave and take a shower for 20 minutes. And I did that, and Anne agreed. And when I came back into the room, Anne no longer had a broken wrist. Her fingers were totally normal. She went back to the same orthopedic surgeon. They took her out of the cast.
All right,
and
I
her
understand.
pain completely went away. Well, at that moment in time, I realized I wasn't doing any of the healing. I was just holding a frequency.
Of course.
Which has made it much easier for me.
No healer does the healing.
That's
the
right.
healer simply gives off the frequency that allows the person, if they are willing to match it, to heal themselves.
Okay.
That's what a healer does. A healer is a vibrational resonant example of what frequency the other person can achieve that would allow them to simply allow their own healing to occur. That's how a healer heals, by letting the other heal themselves. Does that help you?
Oh, most definitely.
Thank you. That is enough.
Thank you so much.
Are there other clarification questions before we proceed?
Yes, Bashar, thank you.
All right, and good day.
Thank you for reminding us once again of what we already know.
Thank you for allowing me to do so.
And
it also helps us remember who we are when we do.
Thank you, and I also need you to help me remind me of one other thing.
And what would that be?
Before lunch, you were talking about becoming the best receivers we can be.
Yes.
And removing all toxins.
Yes, if possible.
Emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual
Yes.
levels. So my question relates to in being conscious of the journey, being aware of the pause,
Yes.
responding differently,
Yes.
and going through 4 months of eating raw foods.
Yes.
I have for a long time felt that I know the communication is there, and I hope others can relate to this, but I can't find the right radio station.
The right radio station meaning what?
For conscious communication. And there's part of my soul.
What makes you think it's supposed to come in the way or the manner that you have been led to believe it must come?
Because it comes that way sometimes, but it seems to keep...
Then why don't you listen for the other ways that it comes at the other times?
And I do.
Well, don't you see it?
I feel it more than see it.
I see. Do you have
No, I feel.
synchronicity in your life?
Yes.
Well, that's seeing it. Communication from higher levels often manifests itself as the synchronicities that occur in your life. Because that sometimes is an easier way to get the point across, rather than having it be vocalized or auditory or some other way that you expect it should come. So the idea is that you're constantly receiving it. You're just to some degree invalidating that all the ways you're receiving it are not equally powerful to the one way in which you wish to receive it. Do you follow?
I do, and I express gratitude in the ways that I do receive it.
All right.
But there is, one of my themes is always feeling that I have to be better than I am at that time, which I'm aware of and working on.
Oh, all right, thank you.
Playing with.
All right, thank you.
Journeying with.
All right. And?
So one of the questions that I've been asking for, part of my excitement
Yes.
is in being a channel of frequency and sound.
Yes. In what manner?
I do
Singing?
No, it's not melodic. It's more electrical toning. It comes out more electronic. Is the only way I can describe it.
But you are using your voice.
I'm opening my mouth and
Yes.
sound is coming out.
Yes. All right.
And it comes out in different levels and people react to it, and I just open it up to be whatever it's meant to be.
All right, and?
For the gathering. But I've been asking for
what?
An interpreter chip.
An interpreter chip. An interpreter chip.
Yes.
What interpretation do you need other than the response that you are getting from the people exposed to it?
Because what I'm getting also is questions of what's happening. And I've been told...
Well, they'll find out, won't they? What do you want to do? Remove all the surprises from the experience? I have to tell you exactly what to expect here, otherwise somehow you're not going to be able to get what you need. That's not the way it's going to work best, necessarily. The idea is to leave some mystery in it, so that you give them something to deal with. If you explain every little bit and piece, they will not really learn what they need to learn through their own processes of receiving the toning. Some of it must remain a mystery. Mystery is part of the recipe. It's not a missing piece. Mystery is part of the formula, not a missing piece. That's where your assumptions are throwing you off. You think that when there's a mystery, that it means there's a gap in information.
Right.
No. Mystery is part of the mechanism. Why do you think we don't tell you everything?
Well, I often get told I'm not allowed to know something.
There you go. That's why. Mystery is part of the process. Otherwise, no process occurs. And you don't really make it your own. Mystery is what allows you to make it your own, to input your own unique way of interpreting it. Every person is their own interpreter chip. Let them be so. You cannot provide a universal interpreter chip.
And don't take away their power by trying to interpret it.
Exactly. Now you understand.
So that it's more powerful to let them interpret it themselves.
It is. Because then they've made it their own. And it's not yours.
Right.
It's theirs. And that's the only way you can really teach something to someone, is to let them make it their own. They cannot just parrot what you know to be true. They have to find out that it's true for themselves, and only through their own mysterious process will they do so. That's where the phrase in your society comes from, that God works in mysterious ways.
Right.
Listen to another way of phrasing that. God works in mysterious ways. Without the mystery, God doesn't work.
Thank you.
You understand?
Yes, no, I do. And one of the senses I got when we were going through the Soul Blueprint history, you mentioned that frequency and resonance is the key.
Yes.
And so my sensation, my feeling was that there is an opportunity there to open and allow Source to come through to help people
And that's
using
what you're
frequencies.
doing. That is what you are doing. But you have to realize that mystery has its own resonance.
Right.
And that has to be part of the song. For without mystery, there is no beauty in discovery. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yes, thank you, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Good day. This is in connection to living in the moment. The human race could be compared to an ant colony that busies itself to the rhythm of time.
All right.
Time is also a commodity that most of us feel a lack of, thereby impairing our ability to live not only in the moment, but to live in alignment with our spirit.
Yes.
How can we free ourselves from the strings of time? And could you explain how you live time, or what time represents for you?
All right. We are much more fluid and flexible with respect to the concept of time. By living more in the moment, we don't create as much time, because that's actually what you're doing. You're creating time and space. It's not something that exists in that sense without you. The more details you create to work with, the more segregation and separation and compartmentalization you create within your consciousness, the more space and time you have to create in order to have room to have all those details and compartments. But the more holistic and integrated you become, the less time you need to create, because you exist more in the now moment, and if you are holistic, then everything that you are fits in that one now moment, or more so. So, while we have come from an evolution that allows us to understand what the experience of space-time is, at this point in our evolution, we don't experience as much of it because we don't create as much of it, because we don't need as much of it. And we don't have the assumptions of time that many of you do, in terms of needing more of it to get more done. In fact, we get more done by creating less of it, because things occur in the now, more instantaneously, and don't need time. The point is to understand that everything already exists. So that if you allow it to manifest, then you don't have to create time for it to take to manifest. Does that make sense?
In a sense, yes.
All right.
Would you
And
suggest that we discard watches and clocks?
some people can find that it would be beneficial if they didn't pay so much attention to that and focus not so much on time but timing, knowing that if they are really following their joy and being who they are, and they can really get practiced at that and be comfortable living in that now space, then they will be where they need to be when they need to be there, interacting with exactly who they need to interact with in exactly perfect timing without paying attention to any clocks at all. Very often you will find, for example, that when we determine that a time, in your terms, has been set aside for an interaction with us, we will sense the timing of the end of the interaction, but our timing sense will often coincide precisely to the second to the amount of time that was set aside for the interaction, even though we do not have clocks. So some people have joked that we must be wearing watches because we know exactly when it is, 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, but we don't. We just know when the timing is done, and it happens to coincide with your time frame because we allow it to find its natural place. So we have no clocks at all. But we are also very used to the idea of trusting our timing, knowing that we can never be early or late, but perfectly on time for whatever it is that happens in our lives. And that we will miss nothing, and that nothing will miss us. Does that make sense?
Yes, so am I to understand you're suggesting to learn to listen inward?
I am.
And to trust and let go?
I am.
Thank you.
Does that help you?
Very much, thank you.
Well, it's about time. Thank you.